It's 5:45 p.m., which means it's time for BCTV's weekly Media Roundup, 5:45 Live. I'm Roland Boyden.
And I'm Kia Bailey. Tonight, the latest Vernon drama as Keith Clark revokes Vernon's Windham County Sheriff's Office contract, Brattleboro preps for a charter revision-heavy election day, and we'll get you plenty of Harris Hill footage from this year's ski jump competition. All that and more in just 15 minutes, so stick with us.
Welcome back to this February 20th, 2015 edition of 5:45 Live. That's footage of this year's 8th annual domino toppling at the Brattleboro Museum and Arts Center this past Monday as BCTV producer Ian Keel once again caught on camera the intricate scheme of homemade clay dominoes, numbering in the many thousands as they came crashing down amidst much applause, with this year's event getting some extra statewide love as the Burlington-based CBS affiliate WCAX broadcast the toppling live.
And with that, into the top headlines we go, where we'll be sure to break down all the latest controversy coming out of Vernon. But first, Harris Hill. Despite the harsh cold, extreme winds, and power outage, the Harris Hill Ski Jump event was a success this past weekend. On Saturday, Spencer Knickerbocker, who attended Brattleboro Union High School for his freshman and sophomore years, won the Pepsi Challenge title for the open class competition, with his top jump reaching 93 meters for a total of 224.5 points. In second place was Cooper Dodds with 218 points, and Andrew Erlaub came in third with 185 points. Saturday's FIS Cup saw Ziga Mandel from Slovenia, Kevin Bickner from the United States, and Ernest Prislik, also from Slovenia, in the top three. Sunday's competition, though delayed an hour and a half due to the power outage caused by a fallen tree, was as strong as ever. The open class competition for the Harris Hill Memorial Competition saw Chris Lamb jump 96 meters to take the lead, with Knickerbocker and Erlaub in second and third. Samet Karta of Turkey ended in first place for the FIS Cup on Sunday, followed by Mandel and Prislik of Slovenia.
Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight.
Number 27 from Italy, Michael Lunardi.
That is Spencer Knickerbocker right there, Brattleboro, Vermont. Oh, he is flying today. You are flying today.
Okay, Spencer.
He loves jumping. This is one of the highlights of Spencer's season there. He's jumping in front of his hometown crowd.
That our flag was still there.
Thanks to all the BCTV volunteers who are out and about braving the cold to gather footage of this year's Harris Hill events, including Russ Graybeck, James Bansleben, Joe Bushy, and many others who got some footage. We've been putting it all together into these clips you've been watching on the screen, and we'll get more Harris Hill footage. You can also find previous years. Find it all at BrattleboroTV.org. All right, we're going to move on in the headlines here.
All right, now as promised, south of Vernon we go, where after a two-day grand jury hearing, it was decided that Select Board Chairwoman Patty O'Donnell will face no criminal charges and no further action will be taken. O'Donnell was accused of having been an obstruction of justice in regards to a DUI charge last September. Her friend had been pulled over, and O'Donnell had made calls to the sheriff's office to interfere and ask that the charge be dropped. According to O'Donnell, the calls and complaints were in reference to the manner in which her friend was stopped and not the DUI charge itself. The deputy who had conducted the arrest reportedly pulled his gun at the scene, which Sheriff Keith Clark defended by mentioning that the driver had initially refused to pull over. In the many months that had followed this event, this issue has been brought up in reports, at select board meetings, in interviews, in letters, and in front of a grand jury. Patty O'Donnell has argued from the beginning that it was not only her right but her responsibility to stick up for members of her community, and her attorney Dan Davis thought the sheriff's department to be unjustified in their claims. Now that O'Donnell has been relieved of any charges, more drama ensues. Beginning in June of 2014, the Sheriff Department began 24/7 police coverage of the Vernon area. In an open letter to the Vernon Select Board, Sheriff Keith Clark addressed concerns he had about the actions of O'Donnell, stating that they were in violation of the contract that had been signed. He mentioned that he is not sure he wants to continue the contract beyond June of 2015 and therefore may no longer offer his policing services to the town of Vernon.
This is a letter, an open letter to the town of Vernon Select Board. Dear board members, after the events surrounding the arrest of Lisa McKinney on September 20th and what transpired after, without assurances that each and every board member will adhere to the stipulations of the contract and will never take actions such as those taken by the chairperson on September 20th, I am reluctant to provide contract and policing services in the future and likely will not seek a contract to provide patrol coverage after June 30th, 2015.
You gave every member of this board 5 numbers for Lieutenant Anderson and 4 numbers for you. And your comment was, if you have an issue with my officer day or night, you are to call me. Is that not true?
That is correct.
When I called Lieutenant Anderson, I called because I wanted a supervisor at the department because I was concerned about the aggressive behavior of your officer. I called Mr. Anderson, or Lieutenant Anderson, a few times, and when I couldn't get a hold of Lieutenant Anderson, I called you. I had huge concerns that night about not about whether or not the arrest was warranted. That was never my concern, but the behavior of the officer was.
I don't think that any communication here was intended or understood by the board or by its chairwoman as a breach of the terms of the town's contract with your department. That's a very different issue to me as an attorney than personal issues between 2 individuals.
Now, I went in front of a grand jury of 23 people, and we both told our stories. And those 23 people found that I did nothing out of my realm of responsibility that evening.
Thanks to BCTV producer M. Richards, who was at that Vernon Select Board meeting this past Monday, where Keith Clark read from that letter, which you can also find in its entirety at the Facebook page of the Windham County Sheriff's Office. And of course, find that full Brattleboro Select Board meeting, including that controversial section. It's all streaming at BrattleboroTV.org. All right, into our Commons News Report we go now. This is where we check in each week with the weekly independent newspaper in Brattleboro, The Commons, which hits newsstands each and every Wednesday for free. Find them all around town, or pick up a subscription of your own. And if you want to help keep the paper afloat, get a paid subscription. All that information at commonsnews.org, which is where we're going to head right now. And into the split screen we go with an Olga Peters penned article entitled, "Will Ballot Questions Restore Free Speech or Create Confusion? Charter Amendments Could Increase Voter Participation or Leave Holes in Representation." As Olga notes, despite a lack of contested races for positions like Select Board in Brattleboro, voters will have plenty to consider in the voting booth this year, with several questions proposed to amend the town charter, lowering the voting age for townwide elections, imposing 6-year term limits for town meeting members, and allowing any decisions of more than $2 million made by meeting members on warrant articles to go town-wide with the vote. With several arguably complicated subdivisions to the 3 proposed and ballot changes, and with that 6-year term limit for town meeting reps, something ballot measure champion Kurt Dimes hopes will, quote, restore our rights and enhance voter participation, but a measure that has members of the Select Board more than a little concerned, with a letter issued by the board earlier this month stating that, quote, term limits would bar many residents who now attend town meeting, and institutional memory that they bring with them would be lost. Now, despite the board's concerns, these questions will ultimately fall to the voters at large on Election Day, as, unlike a proposed 1% local option sales tax, which goes before voters as a non-binding resolution, this ballot question will need no post-Election Day confirmation from the representative town meeting body later in March. Now, for more on the intricacies of the proposed charter changes and the stances of those involved, check out Olga's full article, again, at commonsnews.org.
Now, speaking of the Select Board, they were back before the cameras for a regular meeting this past Tuesday as the board received another update from the Department of Public Works, Hannah O'Connell, with DPW continuing to try a push ahead on a long-stalled state project to address major issues at the intersection of Western Ave and Union Hill, where an 80-foot crosswalk span and 3 heavily traveled roadways converging has had the attention of public planning officers for years. But with limited funding available, the project has remained on the back burner for the better part of a decade. For more now, we'll take a 545 Live rewind to this May when we covered in detail the problems facing the intersection and some of the proposals to address them.
Moving on, anyone that's ever had to turn left off of Union Hill onto Western Ave in a stick shift knows that that particular junction in Brattleboro leaves a little to be desired, with arguably the town's steepest roadway meeting Western Avenue at the same point that the residential Gateway Road Orchard Street also joins Western Ave. And included in that, there are 4 crosswalks, a town park, a popular area grocer, and they all converge on the same spot. So it's hard to know just what direction improvements should take if the town is going to pursue cleaning up that junction, prompting the town's own Department of Public Works to solicit ideas from the public.
All right, with that, it's time to launch into our BCTV video calendar, sponsored by the Brattleboro Savings and Loan, as each week we devote a portion of the show to this weekend's upcoming events. We'll start our calendar coverage this time around by heading north to Putney, as Refuge Reinvention, the third part of Nora Jacobson's 6-part movie Freedom and Unity, the Vermont movie, will be screening at Next Stage Arts in Putney tonight at 7:30, followed by a Q&A session. The 6-part documentary about Vermont is a collaboration between many Vermont filmmakers and sets out to understand Vermont's unique spirit and how it has shaped the state's past, present, and future. Tickets are available at the door.
All right, with that, we'll move on in our calendar. Also, tonight at 7:30 is a lecture hosted by Dr. Renee Gabriere entitled Sustainability in Developing Countries, a Case Study from Nepal. Now, the talk is hosted by the Wyndham World Affairs Council and will take place at the Marlborough Graduate Center in their glass room. The event is free and open to the public. And if you can't make it, they will be recording the show for BCTV. And you can also find past WWAC lectures dating back as far as 2009, with the council featuring their own series page complete with all back episodes, all at BrattleboroTV.org.
Well, that does it for another edition of 545 Live. Thanks for checking in with us, and we'll see you next week right here on BCTV Comcast Channel 8. In the meantime, thanks for watching.